How about Teddy?
Awesome. He's the man. He's
Simply said.
Simply said. Like him, love him or like him, love him or not. You know, you can't deny his ability to get around anywhere and anything.
He will just race anything, anywhere, and give it his all. I don't care if it's an open wheel. I don't care if it's a late model, super modified, sprint car. He's tried them all. He's just a racer's racer.
When did you and Jeff start working with Teddy?
I raced go-karts from the age of 13 to probably the age of 15, and once we were old enough to get in the pits, we got hooked up working with Ted Christopher, and that kind of put the go-kart stuff aside because it was something new and we enjoyed doing it. So we worked with Ted for 3 or 4 years. The first year we actually worked with him was 2001, the year he won a national championship, and what a year to join on and be part of his team, and the amount of stuff we learned was incredible.
Teddy, it's like for a lot of years we were it was almost like me and Moose, but I respected him, he respected me.
I've known Teddy back when he was racing go-karts. I knew who he was. When he first started coming up, really didn't like him. Over the years, racing with him, I have a lot of respect for him.
Ted was always one of them, if he was in your mirror, I would have to say you'd have to equivalent him to having Earnhardt Sr. in your mirror. It just drew that little bit extra of, oh man, how's this going to play out? And if you had a restart, he was one of the best on restarts and still is to this day. So you never knew how it was going to play, and you knew you had to be on your A game because if you left the door there, he was taking it.
I lost 2 important races to him because he intimidated me.
Really?
Yep.
Which ones were they?
Well, I mean, every race is big, but I was leading, he was second. Final restart. Take off. I get a good start on him both times now. Go to shift into high gear, and I always run with 2 feet, one on the clutch, and when I do restarts, I take my clutch foot off and I put it to the brake. Well, during warming up tires, getting ready for the restart, I never took my foot off the brake, and I thought it was on the clutch. So I got the green, took off, got him beat, went to go shift, and stepped on the brake. And he drove right by me both times. So that's my racing against Teddy story. Yeah, and he still, to this day, will not let me forget about it. And that was probably in 2003. Yeah. Yeah, that's my Teddy story.
Very competitive. Not someone that him and I had a little rivalries going, but for the most part, just like everybody else that you've mentioned and probably going to mention, Ted is a great guy. I like him off the track, but when we put our helmets on, we don't need to like each other.
Teddy, I've always been a Teddy fan. A lot of people, either you love him or you hate him, and I grew up watching Teddy over the years, and he could definitely get the job done. He likes to use the front bumper like the old man would, bump you out of the way a little bit, but you got to go,
I would say that when I think of Teddy, I think, there's always been the lovers and the haters. But all the haters have to admit that you cannot deny that the man can drive a race car. You can hate him all you want, but it's obvious if you look at what he's accomplished behind the wheel of a race car. And he didn't start when he was 5 years old. So you can't take that away from the guy. I mean, I've always been a fan. Sometimes I wasn't a fan of his driving style, but I've always been, I've always respected him for what he's accomplished.
He's surprised me many times over the years. As a competitor racing on the racetrack, you take it, one day he's gonna, like my father would say, one day he's gonna piss on my leg, I'm gonna piss on his tomorrow. That's our relationship on the racetrack. That's the way it's, but as a human being, if he called right now and needed anything, I would be there for him. And not that he does that, and not that but I know he's a classy guy, and he's misunderstood in a lot of different ways, but completely understood in a lot of ways too. But the way a lot of people don't, the person that a lot of us don't know, is a pretty neat guy. And I consider him a good friend, believe it or not. People would like, what? He's a real good friend.
You know, Teddy is a rough driver. But I never really had a bunch of problems with Teddy. I think, I don't know why, but, Stafford a couple times, he roughed me up, but, that's his playground. Waterford, never really had any problems with Teddy. He is a racer to the bone, obviously.
Teddy is absolutely one of the greatest race car drivers I've ever seen, and there's not anything that I've seen him in that he hasn't won in. And to be able to still go out there and win weekly, at his age, that most guys just don't have that ability. I mean, it's just his talent hasn't dropped off. I mean, he's still out there. He's still winning races, and it's kind of cool when you can come to victory lane or come through into tech and Teddy comes up and shakes your hand. I mean, I appreciate stuff like that, and Teddy appreciates guys that work hard just as hard as him.
Teddy is he's a character.
Everybody laughs.
And
Teddy.
no, what's funny is, like him or hate him, you know what I mean? Like, I get kind of starstruck with Teddy to a point where he's the guy that was racing when I was a kid that I used to cheer for, like, or even if I didn't want him to win, I was watching him, because he was always a factor, and he's a threat every time he's in a car.
I believe Teddy Christopher is the best modified driver of our time. I also believe that if I was a multimillionaire, I would not put him in my car. Probably because on a bad day, he would tell me to go screw myself. And that's just the personality that he has. I actually love Teddy. I have a lot of fun talking with him. He's a ball buster. He's a hell of a shoe.
Well, Keith Rocco, we can get a picture real quick. Yes, Teddy's old news. Hold on. Wow. Wow. Wait a second. This is all on video. I apologize. I officially apologize.
Absolutely one of the coolest people I've ever met in short track racing, because his ego is just ridiculous, but he backs it up. He always backed it up. He always tells stories, which if you're in my business, that's what you want. You want people who tell stories, and he gets booed everywhere he goes, and he loves it.
Always, you have a reaction whenever you see this man and whenever you hear this name. In the alley construction, in the alley installation, Chevrolet, from Plainville, Connecticut, Ted Christopher.
Any place in this area, if you're going to run races that run SK Modified, you want Teddy to be there. I mean, he's arguably the best known guy in that division. If he's not the best known, he's one of the best known 2 or 3. And to have him at your track is nothing but a plus. And there's times when you see him do things and you say, man, I wish he hadn't done that. But, that's been true since probably the first automobile race ever run. There's always been that one guy that's maybe a little gutsier than you think he ought to be. But, Teddy Christopher's won a lot more races than almost anybody in his era.